Welcome back to A to Z here on Locked On Sports Atlanta, free on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Search Locked On Sports Atlanta. Again, give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On ATL. I'm at Mark Zinno, MarkZinno. Check out all the shows here on Locked On Sports Atlanta. This is A to Z. You have Hitting Hard with John Chuckery, ATL Day Ones with Jarvis Davis, and Tanisha Batiste. Of course, our Braves postcast and Locked On Falcons, Locked On Hawks. An entire great lineup here. We're so supportive and so thankful you guys are supportive of this network. Over 2,000 subscribers on YouTube, and we certainly appreciate all the love. So keep it up, tell a friend, and let everybody know where you can find some of the best Atlanta sports content right here on Locked On Sports Atlanta. Coming up, we'll get into the Braves' big series and how one outlet described the Braves' trade deadline. We'll do that coming up here in a little less than 10 minutes. But I needed to address something that I saw in some Falcons reporting and then did some research on. And I'm wondering how this is actually going to play out this year. And it's a stat that Arthur Smith has been pretty good in his career. So Josh Kendall of The Athletic had mentioned this, as well as D'Orlando Ledbetter, the AJC. Sorry, hamster fell off the wheel there. But they talked about big plays, right? Big passing plays. And all Josh Kendall of The Athletic wrote, it says Falcons are 22nd in the NFL last season in pass plays of 20 yards or more. Smith would like to improve on that, but it's not happening yet in training camp. Quote, the quarterbacks are throwing the ball pretty well. We've got to hit some of these deep plays. That would be one critique, he said. D-Led said Smith has been pleased with the quarterbacks but wants to connect on more deep passing. Talking about Kyle Pitts, quote, he's made a ton of plays. One critique I have in the quarterbacks and throwing the ball decent. Putting the ball downfield, we have to make some of those plays. Some of them have been covered. Cornerback A.J. Terrell made a play on one. So I decided to do some research here on the concept of big plays and the concept of, where they sort of fit in. And I found the numbers a little bit enlightening and interesting. Let's start with Atlanta, just so you have a frame of reference here. So last year, Atlanta still had Matt Ryan in the offense, right? And granted, they didn't have much of anything else. But as you mentioned, according to Warren Sharp, who's one of the best football analysts out there, the Atlanta Falcons were 25th in explosive play rate. All right. They were 25th in explosive pass rate and 20th in explosive run rate. Now you may be saying, no, wait a minute. Why explosive 20th run rate? They didn't have a running game. Well, they had Cordero Patterson. And by the definition of an explosive run rate, a lot of his runs met the criteria for it. So that's why they were there. And even though it's really crazy because, their explosive some run plays netted 393 yards. And they had 42 explosive rushes. Another team, that's in the same range as them, when you look at the number, like New Orleans had 45, yet it netted 510 yards. So make of that what you will. But that's where the Falcons were. Now, coincidentally, Tennessee last year, who lost Arthur Smith, was 24th in overall explosive play rate. That's just one position ahead of the Falcons. They were 29th in pass rate and 18th in run rate. Why were they so low in run rate with Derrick Henry? Because, he only played 9 games last year. So everything went downhill. They had no explosive running after Derrick Henry got hurt. And, oh, by the way, despite the fact that they did have A.J. Brown and Julio Jones, with no running game last year, Ryan Tannehill was ineffective in explosive pass play rate. That explains that. So that's where they were in 2021. Let's go back to 2020 and 2019, the 2 years that Arthur Smith was the OC in Tennessee, to see how good he really was. But first, a word from my friends at Coffee AM. You've heard me tell you about them every single day. Why? Because that's how I start my morning. Cup of Coffee AM. Really, really simple. This is the best small batch roaster in America, and it's right here in Atlanta. These are the people who send coffee to your home, and when you get that box and open it up, smell just hits you right in the face, and it is so good. Their coffees are so fresh. Why? Because most of their coffees are roasted and shipped the exact same day or close to it. And they only roast specialty grade current crop coffees. from around the world, mind you, all over the place. Organic trade, fair trade, direct trade, expertly crafted blends, espressos, coffees, flavored coffees, gourmet teas, and a whole lot more. Go to coffeeam.com // locked on today to take a full look at their menu of coffees, teas, and gift sets. That's coffeeam.com / locked on and use coupon code locked on at checkout to get 15% off your first order of coffees, teas, and gift sets. Coffee AM, the best small batch coffee roaster in America, and it's right here in your backyard. All right, so now let's take a look at Arthur Smith in 2020. 2020 rather, because 2021, obviously, he was with Atlanta. And this is indicative of how good he is in this particular area. And we're going to Tennessee. And just for a reference, with Matt Ryan in 2020, despite the fact that things were bad and Dan Quinn was failing, the Falcons were 23rd in explosive play rate. They were 12th in explosive pass rate, and they were dead last in the league in an explosive run rate, which makes a ton of sense. Tennessee, however, was 9th in the league in explosive play rate. They were 10th in explosive run rate and 14th in explosive pass rate. And oh, by the way, that year, A.J. Brown was also injured for a hot minute in 2020. Go back to 2019. That was the year where the Titans made the run to the AFC Championship game. And oh, by the way, the Falcons were 29th in explosive play rate in 2019, 29th in explosive pass rate, and 25th in explosive run rate. Tennessee Titans, 3rd in explosive play rate, 2nd in explosive pass rate, and 4th in explosive run rate. This is something that Arthur Smith excels at. Now, granted, he had better talent in Tennessee than he does here in Atlanta. And granted, he had a better team overall. But, this is what he does well. And if they can start to make this a thing, if they can get out of the cellar and start to make explosive plays happen, it can change the dynamics of this offense, particularly the running game for them. Because here's likely what's going to happen, or at least the mentality going into the season, is that I can drop 5 back in coverage and leave 7 up front because the Falcons can't block very well. We'll be able to minimize the run. And if we do that and get them in 2nd and 8 and 3rd and 6 or 3rd and 7, well, guess what? We know how to defend these guys. And even though there's Kyle Pitts out there, and even though there's Drake London, we can double team those guys and still be effective in coverage overall. And that's how we beat the Falcons defensively. But once you start hitting on some big plays, once you start changing and lengthening the field, guess what? The offense becomes a whole lot more difficult to manage. And holes open up front. And runs are there. And then play action is there. I mean, this is a critical part of winning in today's NFL. You've got to be able to get the ball down the field and do it quickly. So let's continue to watch this and monitor it and see where it goes with Arthur Smith, because it's something that I will continually look for. When I get back out to camp, I'm going to continue to ask him about how he built that and if he can build it with different talent here in Atlanta, or is it just as scheme-based as anything else? So let's see where they go this year. But keep that in the back of your mind about explosive play rate with the Falcons. Speaking of explosive, Mets, Braves, 5 games, 4 days for a lot of the marbles, not all of them. We'll do that next right here on A to Z. Locked On Sports Atlanta, free on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. Search Locked On Sports Atlanta.